CFB Paint back again for another episode. This one looking to close out the official end of the regular season with Army and Navy now concluding the college football regular season and looking forward to the postseason, bowls, playoff, etc. Also sprinkled in there, we've got a little bit more coaching shakeup since we last spoke. Obviously some positions had been filled, more have been now. So we'll talk through a couple of those, give our takes and opinions on those. We don't really have a rapid round this go around. I have got two thoughts on Army Navy. Number one, love that it's a throwback to kind of college football of yesteryear, both in terms of style of play with a lot of kind of triple option type plays being run. Also, it's just like that game's going to matter, and it doesn't necessarily have playoff implications or anything like that. So congratulations to Army winning it, capturing the Commander-in-Chief trophy in the process of winning that game. Big turnaround for them, by the way. I think they started off 0-4 and things looked like they were kind of spiraling for Army. And then all of a sudden they beat Air Force, and that really kind of led them to a really strong finish to the season. Finished 6-6. Commanders-in-Chief trophy is in the trophy case, and they're headed to a bowl. So hat tip to the Black Knights of Army. My last thought on that is, I don't know if you've seen Brian Newberry. Cory, have you seen him, the Navy head coach? He looks like what Santo kind of would put on a vision board for post New Year's resolutions. He's got the nice white beard, really clean cut, but also is jacked for a man of his age. And I'm not sure how old he is, but he's certainly a silver fox in terms of the go ahead, Google him.
I already did. Yeah.
Yeah. Does he look like just the most swole Santa Claus you've ever seen? Anyway, so yeah. Yeah. So with that being the close of the regular season, we wanted to talk through a couple of coaching changes. I'll go ahead and highlight a few of these. This is not an exhaustive list, but Tulane hires John Sumrall from Troy. Duke hires Manny Diaz from Penn State, where he's the defensive coordinator. Boise State promotes interim coach Spencer Danielson after letting go of Andy Avalos. Syracuse hires Fran Brown, the former defensive backs coach at Georgia. New Mexico hires Bronco Mendenhall, gets him out of retirement. He's back in the game, back where one could say his career sort of started to take off, where he was defensive coordinator at New Mexico. Willie Fritz is now at Houston, and Indiana hired James Madison's Kurt Signetti. So there's a handful of them. Again, that's not an exhaustive list. Oh, sorry, I think we wanted to include one more. Sean Lewis, the former offensive coordinator at Colorado, is now at San Diego State. Cory, give me your take on one or two of those. Which ones do you like? Which ones do you not like?
Oh, dude, I want to talk about them all, which is kind of sad. But
one or two. We can go through them all. We can do that. We have time.
Let's go quick. Tulane picking up John Sumrall as a replacement for Willie Fritz. I like this pickup from Troy. He's looked good at Troy, and I think it just allows him to keep being one of the top, G5, or if you want to call the ACC and their G6 teams in the country. Duke. Yeah.
What? Just like you're not wrong.
Yep.
Did you see? Sorry, before we go on to Duke, did you see John Sumrall's intro press conference today?
I did not. No.
He's like, I'm gonna speak it into existence. He said look, we're here. We plan to win multiple conference championships. Which to me, okay, you're Tulane. You've done pretty well in the American the last couple of years. That's not that crazy. He's like, we're gonna make it to the playoffs, and that again to me is all right. 5 or 6 conference champions guaranteed in, not that big. And he's like, I'm going to speak it into existence. We're going to win it. Okay, all right. That might be a little ambitious, but at least he kind of was tongue in cheek with it. Clearly, of course that's maybe the goal, but is it the most realistic goal? I think he kind of realizes that it maybe isn't, but it was fun. I love it.
Yeah, acknowledge what you're going for, acknowledge where you'd like to be, and you also realize it's going to be difficult. And be real with everybody. I like it. Duke picking up Manny Diaz. I said I like this hire. You said, oh, and I know. See, I'm a Manny Diaz fan. I feel like Manny Diaz is a good recruiter. I think what he needs to do is hire a good offensive coordinator and be able to recruit good players and be involved in the defense. I think what he did at Miami was he wasn't involved enough. And I think Brent Venables kind of made the same mistake his first year at Oklahoma. Get Manny Diaz involved in the defense still. Don't rely on the defensive coordinator because that's where his prowess is. His prowess is there and recruiting. So let him do those two things and get a good offensive coordinator. And I think you set yourself up for a good opportunity to be okay in the SEC and maintain Mike Elko's, above average ACC team.
Yeah, the interesting thing that I wonder as that interview process played out, the parallel I'm drawing here is like Ed Orgeron when he got the LSU job. One of the things that the athletic director actually came out and said, and I can't remember if he gave much of the details, but he's like, we were really impressed with his answers of how it would be different here versus his first head coaching job at Ole Miss, and that would be the same sort of thing that I would have to ask. Yeah, was it? No, but I'm just saying that's the same thought process, right? Like if I'm the Duke athletic director, whose name I don't even know, but I would say, all right, Manny, what did you learn from Miami? What would you do differently? What would you do the same? And I think you hit the nail on the head with a couple of those, like being more involved in the defense, definitely. I don't know if I think Manny Diaz is a stellar recruiter. So he's fine. I think it would be really interesting, kind of now knowing what we know about the first couple of years of Mario Cristobal. I felt, and we all felt like that roster was made for a nice little leap in year one, and it took a big step back. So it would have been interesting to see what would have happened.
To be honest.
I
put that on Mario Cristobal and his hires, to be honest. I don't think Mario Cristobal...
Oh, yeah. Right. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is it would have been interesting if we could, knowing what we know on how that year plays out with Mario in year one, what would it have been like if it was Manny Diaz in year 4?
Yeah.
Because odds are, Rhett Lashley probably still leaves for SMU to be a head coach, but you'd probably get a similar offensive approach, something that's a little bit more tailor-made to Tyler Van Dyke. I don't know. It would just be interesting to see what could have happened because Manny Diaz was, when he was kind of advocating for his job, was like, look, we've laid the groundwork and now it's about to get good. It's going to get really good. And then 3 weeks later, he was let go. So it'll be interesting. I just wonder, I feel like the ACC is going to be harder, not easier than it was when he was at Miami. And he has a job that's harder, not easier than the Miami job. So
I agree. But I don't think you can get a Miami caliber job right now because you had that old Miami recollection. So it's all right,
yeah,
a little different.
For sure. I just is it going to get better than it was with Elko? No, I think it gets worse. I think in 3 years, Manny Diaz is right around a 500 record.
Overall?
Over 3 years.
His team?
Overall. At Duke. Sorry, at Duke.
Yeah, I put him, what was Mike Elko? 8-4 both years?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, I put Manny more closer to 7-6. I think Mike Elko did the best you probably can do, and I think Manny's not a bad hire. I don't think you're going to beat Mike Elko unless Mike Elko had stayed longer, to be honest.
Fair.
And
okay.
I think Manny Diaz is a good hire. If they give him enough time, maybe he can start producing higher.
All right. But, yeah, be fun to see what happens there.
Yeah.
Next one, Boise State, Spencer Danielson. I don't have too much on this one other than this one felt like it was a vibes hire that he won the job by winning out and actually taking getting them to the Mountain West Conference title game. I think then they gave him the job and then they went ahead and won the game as well, won the conference. So, it's not often that you have a team that wins the conference championship that also fired their coach in the same season. So, good on Spencer Danielson then. That one I don't have an opinion here or there of how that's going to shake out.
I just feel like you had a harder schedule to start the season off, and then you kind of ended it on an easier note. And so it's an interesting hire to me. You did beat Wyoming pretty handily, but you lost to Fresno State, which you kind of expected, and then you beat everybody else you kind of expected to beat. UNLV's a decent team. That you beat pretty handily. I'll give you that. But the other games, I would have probably had you favored in. What we know about Air Force now, they kind of fell apart towards the end of the year. I would have had you favored in them. So I don't know. It's an interesting hire. I think year 2 will tell you whether you made it right or not. So.
Yeah, that one's definitely a wait and see. Here's one I'm really bullish on. Fran Brown is hired at Syracuse. And it's not only just that he's been hired, but look at the staff he's putting together. He got the interim coach at Texas A&M, Elijah Robinson, the defensive line coach, killer recruiter, is now his defensive coordinator. I'm blanking on who he just brought in as an offensive. I'm forgetting who it is, but uh, the needle's pointing up for Syracuse. I think that they're gonna reap some rewards with him, and he's also somewhat local, like born in New Jersey. And in his opening press conference, basically said like, people say this is home. He's like, no, I was here and I was on welfare here. I'm so grateful to be here. So um, that's an exciting one to me. That one's one that not an easy place to win and be successful. There's not a whole lot of like great recruiting talent around. Not a whole lot of high school talent in New York for football. So I'm interested to see how that one plays out. I think that one is an upgrade. What do you think on that one, Cory?
I would agree with that. I feel like they were kind of stuck in like second gear and couldn't quite get over the hump. They do great at the beginning of the season, then kind of go back in to the end of the season.
Yeah.
But I do like the Fran Brown hire. I think that's a good hire. He's ranked the number one recruiter in the nation, according to some outlets. Granted, that helps that you have Georgia money backing you. But yeah, he's not retaining Jason Beck as offensive coordinator, is he?
I don't know if he's decided on that. He has brought in someone that's supposed to be I think they're a position coach, and I can't even remember who it is now, and I can look it up and probably circle back by the end of the pod on it. But
Yeah.
But I don't know if Beck is going to stay. I don't think he's been announced one way or the other.
Yeah, honestly, I'm excited for what they do. I mean, you got KJ Bolden to show up on campus this last weekend.
Yeah.
Like, name the last time you had a 5-star recruit show up at Syracuse. I can't remember it.
Carmelo Anthony.
Yeah, a basketball.
Sorry.
Never mind.
There's probably been one between then and now too, but I don't really follow college basketball recruiting. But you get the point. No, yeah, I think he's going to do quite well. So that'll be a fun one to kind of keep an eye on and see if we got that right. From kind of a new up-and-comer to a seasoned, one might say, grizzled veteran, New Mexico hires Bronco Mendenhall. I mentioned this earlier. He was their defensive coordinator when Brian Urlacher was on that team. So years and years and years ago, cut his teeth at New Mexico. I believe, did he play at New Mexico too? Is that his alma mater? I think it is. Oh no, he's at Oregon State. I think he played at Oregon State. Excuse me. But yeah, the got his cut his coaching teeth mostly at New Mexico before getting a couple of different opportunities. But got him out of retirement. I'll tell you, like, Bronco Mendenhall, he's a program builder. Obviously, he's the success he had at BYU and some of the success he had at Virginia kind of speaks for itself. If you're New Mexico, I think this is a home run hire. And as like kind of an outside person that doesn't have a whole lot of like vested interest in the state of New Mexico, I will tell you that the New Mexico State rivalry just got very interesting with Bronco Mendenhall as the head coach at New Mexico. Jerry Kill just had a 10-win season at New Mexico State. Man, for the storylines, people out there like me, that's a fun one. That'll be fun to see how they duke it out going forward in the state of New Mexico for state supremacy. Any thoughts on that, Cory?
I mean, you went and got a relatively big name, but Bronco's been out of the game for so long. I'm nervous.
It's different now, for sure.
Also, like, I wasn't a fan of his offensive hires with a die. What's the name? No,
Anai.
Yeah, Robert Anai. Thank you. I hated that hire, and I hated it when I followed in Virginia, and I've hated on it when it's been NC State and been at Syracuse, and I haven't been proven wrong, to be honest. Like, it hasn't been exceptional. It's been okay, and that's what I'm like. He's a defensive coach. He's a defensive mind. They'll play sound ball, but will they be able to make a higher level than they want to, or like a level where they're competing? They might go 500.
Be interesting to see how he navigates like the transfer portal, which wasn't really a thing when he left Virginia. Like, it's kind of exploded in the last couple of years. Yeah, I don't know. That one will be interesting.
I'll keep track of it purely because he's a BYU or former BYU coach. That's the only reason I'll care about that one.
Well, I told you that at one point, like, I took that coaching football class, right? And like, you meet in the football offices, and it's like off hours, so like, you really only have coaches in there. It's not like players, and it's It's done on winter semester, so like January through April. But at one point we were in, I think, the defensive backs room. I'm sketching out plays, just trying to remember some of the stuff that had been taught. And he like pokes his head in. Bronco's hey coach, like, just it was just me and two of the other guys that are in the coaching football class, so he doesn't know who we are, he has no idea. And he's just like, oh, like, I mean, like, it was just kind of this really, like, kind of like, I'm terrified because I am where I'm supposed to be right now, but he may feel differently, and his what he says goes in this building, I'm sure. He's just like, oh no, I'm looking for someone else, like, just go as you were, basically. And it was like, oh, thank goodness. Like, always tried to stay out of the way of the actual movers and shakers in the building. But yeah, I hope to see him be successful. The Lobos, can they get up off the mat? Can they do something more than they've been in the last decade or so? From one of the maybe lower profile hires there in terms of just the job, to one of the ones that I think is more interesting. Willie Fritz goes to Houston. I'll let you get first say on this. I feel like I've been hogging the first
No, I'm
opportunity.
okay with it. I like the hire. Willie Fritz has been successful at Georgia Southern, then at Tulane. I mean, in the Big 12 right now, they're especially with now the teams that have exited, you don't have as much competing about recruiting. You have competing about style of play and coaching. It feels like everybody's going to kind of recruit on a similar level. That's how it feels. And so what you need is an advantage in coaching, and that's what I think you're giving yourself right here by picking up Willie Fritz. And that gives you the opportunity to rise to the top. That gives you the opportunity to start when you start becoming to challenge for the upper tier, then you get to start getting the investments that can come from having a big school, and you also start reaping the rewards of having a big area of Houston to recruit from.
Yes.
And so I think this is one that will take 1 or 2 years to show complete fruits, but you're going to see it moving in the right direction next year.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I wouldn't necessarily consider Willie Fritz to be like a dynamite recruiter, but I'm telling you, when he turns it around on the field, the backing he'll have off the field will be second to none in the new Big 12. Tillman Fertitta, obviously the owner of the Houston Rockets, very invested in Houston Cougars football as well. Like, you're going to get everything that you need to field a competitive roster. And so, yeah, this is one that I think, like you said, in a couple of years I could see them being like the class of the new Big 12.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you and I predicted. I predicted them and UCF in the end. If they can get out 2-point everything's a 2-point conversion kind of style of football. I'm not a huge Gus Malzahn fan of football, but I mean, whatever. It got him to a championship. So
you're gonna get me onto a tangent here, because the new Big 12 I think is just fascinating. I think there's like 5 or 6 candidates that could potentially be kind of the new powers, and again, they'll probably alternate and take some turns here. I think both of the Arizona schools have opportunities to do that. I think both of them are kind of trending up. Texas Tech, we all know how I feel about Joey McGuire. That hasn't changed. They had insane injuries this year. Watch them bounce back. Houston's definitely one of them. UCF's definitely one of them. Kansas State might be that final one I might throw in there as one that can potentially take over.
Colorado, come on.
Yeah, I'm like, I am leaving off Dion, and I'm doing that on purpose. I don't know. I just, number one, is he there in 2 years? I don't think so. So, like, I just don't see that happening.
Do you think he's going on to bigger and better places, or they get rid of him?
It could be anything. I could see him even just like, I mean, he could move on. That's for sure. Like,
it's kind of weird. He hasn't coached a team without Shedeur as his quarterback.
He did it right?
In high school. He did it
to Jackson State.
Jackson State. Now he's in Colorado. It's like, I think Shadeur's back for next year, but then after that, what?
Yeah, and they had 2 different quarterback recruits decommit. So I don't know. I need to see it from Colorado. Yeah, and I don't know if they have staying power. Look what Jackson State's doing now that Dion's gone.
Yeah,
he's not building it for the long haul. Let's put it that way.
Well, it also
Anyway,
doesn't help that he took his quote unquote Louis with him.
yeah, yeah,
Although he did pick up real Louis this last week with the number one offensive tackle.
yeah,
Committing to
yeah.
it. So
The rest of that offensive line, I think I got to kind of see to believe, though. Everyone's
did
like,
you
oh, he retooled it again. I'm like, yeah, well, he did this last offseason, and we didn't see a whole lot of results from it. So
did you
at
see
this
the
point, he
quote?
doesn't get the benefit of the doubt
Yeah, that's true. I got you.
for
You
me.
see the quote from Seaton yesterday?
What'd he say?
Was it yesterday? It's like he said like, why wouldn't you want to go play for somebody that looks like you? And that was like a interesting comment because it was made next to all white reporters, and I was like, I get it. I mean, that's kind of I don't want to put myself in hot water here, but I feel like a little bit about that. Like with Bama, I'm like, why do black people want to go play for a school that's built on slave money? That's what it feels like to me. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I don't know. Uh, but like to me, I'm like always thought that was weird, and like I can get supporting your own race and people that you feel like you can connect with. So I mean, I don't know. I like if he's selling that and he gets people to buy it, well, good on it. You know.
Yeah, I mean, like, obviously I'm gonna dodge the race issue there as well, but like, anything that you can that resonates with a kid, to me is fair game. I mean, you had Urban Meyer. We've talked about the Urban Meyer waking up and saying, "I had a dream, and God told me in that dream that you're supposed to come play for me." Like, not sure that actually happened, but it convinced a kid to go there. Um,
Was that Tebow? No, I was kidding.
no, it was no, but that would be a very convincing pitch. um, yeah, yeah. So like, I mean, we'll see what happens. I just don't know if he's really building for the long haul. Like it's just going to be hard to do it the way he's doing it. So
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm ready to go there just yet with that. But again, the Big 12 I think is going to be one of the more fun conferences moving forward, just because you don't see a dominant power, and so we're talking about the 4 or 5 that may, but it could end up being someone else. It could end up being like the ACC Coastal of old, where they just everyone takes a turn winning it. So we'll see. Um, we'll move on to bowl matchups. I kind of broke this down into a couple things, like bowl matchups we're looking forward to. Like I put in like the two like playoff matchups. Like we've gone on here and we've aired our grievances with who the teams are. In that I am not over it, but I'm also not going to rehash what we've done. Um, so nonetheless, I'm very excited for those two. I don't know if we really need to break the matchup down just yet. Like we can probably do that closer to it. But I have a collection of other bowl games that I'm interested in. And I don't know if you want to just like alternate, Cory, or if you want me to just go through mine and we can talk
Yeah,
about
sure.
those
Best you
ones.
go, and then I'll give my
Okay.
on bowl games after that.
Yeah, feel free. So a couple that I'm interested in, and let me just like lay out my criteria. So for me, what makes bowl games interesting is different now than it was maybe 7 or 8 years ago, where you saw like, okay, really, really good matchups against teams that maybe weren't quite into like a title picture, but were like, just on the cusp. We're not getting that anymore. Like with the transfer portal, with popularity of bowl opt outs. For me, what I'm looking for is, am I finding two teams that care? Am I finding two teams that are either still intact from what they were in the regular season, or have intriguing talent that's going to be in place, is going to be replacing someone that's either transferred out or is opting out and preparing for the NFL draft? And I think I've got a couple that are here that are like that. So my first one, I think the bowl outside of the playoffs that I'm looking forward to the most, Oklahoma versus Arizona, and a couple of reasons why. Number one, Oklahoma, they had a great year. It fell a little short of, I think, their ultimate goals of winning the Big 12 and participating in the Big 12 title game. Nonetheless, really successful season, good bounce back year in year 2 under Brent Venables. I'm excited to see what Jackson Arnold looks like as a starter. So he's the new quarterback at Oklahoma. Dylan Gabriel transfers out. He's since announced he is transferring to Oregon. So reading the tea leaves there, that to me says like, okay, like maybe he was encouraged to hit the portal and go find another place to start because the Jackson Arnold era was set to begin. It's me speculating. I don't know anything, but
Why not get an extra? bowl games don't count against your red shirt anyway. They already burned his red shirt last week or a few weeks ago anyway. So why not go get a test and be like, you know what? We know we're going with Jackson Arnold. Let's play him and give him
Yeah.
full rep.
And this will be a good test. Again, thus far, there's still time between now and this bowl game to take place for more people to announce they're being out. But like, he's gonna face a pretty good defense. Like, the defensive line at Arizona is pretty good. They have two really good linebackers in Justin Flo, and I can't remember his first name, but the last name Manu. Both of them very good linebackers and a pretty solid secondary. So like, this is a good test for him. This is something where they can take this and go into the offseason kind of learning from this and knowing what else they need to work on. I'm also interested because most of Arizona's talent is young talent that can't, they're not going preparing for the NFL draft. They're just preparing for another year next year. They're preparing perhaps for a Big 12 championship run because they've got some really good pieces in place. And Noah Fafita, Taylor McMillan, um, goodness, I'm blanking on the other wide receivers name, Jacob Cowing. They've got a really strong set of skill players. Like I mentioned, they have a strong defense. I think the line between these two is like pretty. I think it's Arizona -1.5, something like that. So it's
Arizona
Vegas season -3. Okay, sorry. So, but Vegas is seeing this as a pretty close game, or a pretty close game. So those are the kind of the criteria. I think that one kind of breaks it down pretty well. Other things I'm looking forward to see is like programs that are at crossroads, right? Like, South Florida versus Syracuse is one that I think is really interesting because Syracuse, like we mentioned, has a new coach. That one, to me, I'm not going to learn as much from Syracuse. More so, I'm interested in South Florida, where Adam Golish took the Bulls bowling. Just make sure I say that right again. Took the South Florida Bulls bowling in year one, which is really impressive. South Florida's really kind of struggled. Their last couple of hires have not really made a whole lot of an impact, and Golish gets them bowling in year one. I'm excited to see what he's able to do in year two as an encore. They found something with that quarterback in Byram. I'm blanking his last name. But that's an interesting one because I think they're a sneaky good team going into next year, where there would be a good transfer portal destination for any South Florida players that are looking to come closer to home. Maybe need to like go down from the Power 5, Power 4 level to the G5 level. So that one's one that I'm interested in. Louisville, USC. I'm really just intrigued to see what USC looks like without Caleb Williams, because it could be a train wreck. Like, they went 7-5 with the Heisman Trophy winner. So I don't know what that one's going to look like. I am intrigued to see what USC looks like going forward, but that one to me is just an interesting kind of programs. Ones it feels like it's on the rise. USC perhaps should be on the rise, but doesn't feel like it in year two under Lincoln Riley. And then my final one, Oklahoma State versus Texas A&M, mostly because I have no idea who's going to play for Texas A&M. Like, we're going to get deep into the depth of that roster because there's been lots of transfers out. I don't know who they're starting at quarterback because Max Johnson's now in the transfer portal. I don't know who the third quarterback is. So, and then you're going to be playing an Oklahoma State team that, again, is coming off of a pretty nasty defeat in the Big 12 championship game to Texas. What does that roster look like? I haven't seen a whole lot of transfer portal entries from Oklahoma State to this point. Admittedly, I haven't been looking that closely, but that one's just a fun one because it's a former conference matchup. And really, I think that's also programs at a crossroads where you're not going to learn a whole lot from that game. Maybe you might learn something from the Oklahoma State side of it. If they can get to 10 wins and go 10-4 on the year, that's an incredible, that's a good season, especially when it started out and looked like a mess. So those are some bowl matchups I'm excited for. That doesn't maybe not an exhaustive list, but just there's some highlights there. Cory, tell us about bowls and why you think what you think about them.
I hate bowl season because of the transfer portal and because everybody else is opting out. It just makes it no fun because you can't even count on teams playing like who they're going to play. Half the time, teams don't have coaches anymore. It's just not fun, like to that degree. And I've stopped watching a lot of bowl games just because of that. It's like, yeah, I was invested in Florida State last year because I was like, all right, they're playing Oklahoma, but also like they were playing for a 10-win season, and they had something to play for. Everybody came back for it. And like you said, you're looking for players that can do that, but a lot of teams don't have that, and the teams that are good don't have that. And so, like I that's partially why I hate it. It feels like exhibition games. It feels like the NFL preseason, and who the hell watches that? Honestly,
Some of us football-starved people at the beginning of the football season will watch it.
Yes,
We'll debase ourselves and watch it. Yeah,
will get cut in week 5 of the preseason. I do not care to see. Anyways,
you're not wrong. What do you think of my 5 though? I think those are pretty good exceptions to the rule.
I'll go into some of that. I like the Louisville USC pick a lot. I think the Oklahoma Arizona game's going to be fun. I think that Oklahoma State Texas A&M is going to be shambles. I think Oklahoma State's going to destroy them. But
really?
I think it's going to be just because there's a coach on one side. I'm assuming Mike Elko isn't taking over quite yet, and even if he is taking over, it's going to be a little bit whatever.
Hard to get everyone organized in a couple weeks for sure.
But other matchups that I find semi-intriguing, very very semi-intriguing, like the Clemson-Kentucky matchup is kind of interesting because Devin Leary is coming back to play the bowl game, so that makes it kind of interesting and see like can Clemson figure this out. Honestly, like. Started moving in the right direction, but I edited myself there on that one. Sorry.
Good job.
The other one, Missouri, Ohio State. Missouri's favored in that game.
Yeah.
Like that's surprising to me, and the fact that you chased out Kyle McCord, and who's going to play quarterback for you if you're Ohio State?
Is Devin Brown going to play? Like he's not like injured, right? He's just the backup now at this point. I knew he had an injury mid-season, but I think he should be back, right?
And then, I mean, do your star receivers play the bowl game? I haven't even looked that up.
No.
I don't think they would, but
I wouldn't think so.
And then just kind of like Ole Miss Penn State, that'll be interesting because it's like you have like a tier of good teams, and then you have like a tier of like the teams below it, and there's the teams below it in their conference. Ole Miss is like the top of the crap, and Penn State is the top of the crap in those two teams. And so it'll be interesting to see how they play out.
Have you seen, sorry, real quick on that one, have you seen like Lane Kiffin like congratulating Manny Diaz on getting a job, and then like quote tweeting Chop Robinson announcing that he's going to the NFL draft? He's like, congratulations, go get paid. Like just like kind of like goading all the Penn State fans, like saying like, oh, these guys aren't going to be in the bowl game, so I'm thrilled about it.
Dude, Lane Kiffin 5 years ago would have annoyed me, and Lane Kiffin nowadays I find absolutely like the best thing that's about college football.
Yeah, refreshing. Like finally someone who's gonna just say stuff and have fun with it.
And he doesn't take it seriously. Like when they threw mustard at him or something like that in Tennessee, he was just like, whatever.
Yeah.
He's like probably warranted, but whatever. Last but not least, just the Liberty Oregon Bowl. Just the fact that Liberty went 13-0, but they played no one. And can they hang? We'll see. Can they hang? I don't know.
Yeah. And Bo Nix is going to play in that game.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
That to me is a little surprising decision, but I'll take it in for one more game. Now, is there anything else you want to say? Good picks, by the way. Like there's some that definitely I was like, I like these ones too. In fact, I intended to put the Missouri Ohio State one on there, but just slipped my mind.
I'm interested in the Florida Georgia game. I worry it's going to be people saying like, oh, I'm worried about who plays and who doesn't play, and whether it is a no-win situation for Florida State. You're like, oh, you beat SEC team. Well, they didn't care anyway. Or you don't beat them, and then you're like, well, you didn't deserve to be in. And it's like...
Yeah, it's going to be a referendum one way or another, which to me is dumb. Because, like, really, Florida State people should flip the script and be like, well, we didn't care to be there. We earned our right, like, if they don't win, right? And I don't expect them to win, but... to me, the part that's disappointing is like you're playing that game with essentially no stakes, right? Like there's nothing on the line there, and
2-point dogs.
Well, yeah. My thing is like if that game is different if it's a playoff game. The people that are going to participate in that game on both sides is going to be different. I think more predominantly the ones on Florida State's team, because like you look at Georgia's roster, lots of those guys are not. I mean, outside of like Bowers, McConkey, is he really an NFL receiver? I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe.
I mean, it could be in the mold of.
But my point is that you're not going to have a whole lot of like NFL opt outs from Georgia. I don't think you might have like 2 or 3, right? But I think that's it.
Any Florida State player is that they're opting out. That's the one thing that's surprising to me.
Say what?
You haven't heard a single Florida State player come out and say I'm opting out yet. That's
Johnny Wilson has.
No,
Johnny Wilson has.
He's going to the NFL. He's not said he's opting out yet.
Maybe someone assumed that.
Okay, no, but I didn't see that earlier.
Yeah, I think when he announced he's going to the Senior Bowl, that he was also going to skip the bowl game. So, yeah, if you're Florida State, you've been put in a no-win situation, right? Like, you're going to have. I'm expecting significant opt-outs, right? Like, Braden Fisk, I don't think he serves himself anything doing. He's already earned his money, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. So
same with Jared Verse. Same with your defensive backs. 2 of them have already committed to like the East-West Shrine game. I don't know if they end up playing in that game. So it's not going to. I'm going to say this right now, like, win or lose, like, I don't think it proves a point one way or another whether or not the committee was right or wrong. Like, I've already kind of gone on record as saying that, but like, if they win, of course they're going to say like, see, that proves we deserve it. And if they lose, like, then they're going to say, well, we didn't care to be there. So I just feel like whoever you are on whatever side of the fence you lay on that argument of whether FSU should have or should not have been in or out, I don't think you're going to change your mind based on the result of that game. Like, so that to me is one where it's like, it's going to test. It would be a fun game if you saw both teams at full strength and even full strength given like season-ending injuries like Jordan Travis's, right? So like without him in, but the rest of Florida State's starters as they're currently constituted versus Georgia starters, I think they match up okay starters for starters. But when you get into that second layer of the team, which I think you'll see a lot of Florida State's, Georgia's a better team. Like, they've been recruiting at that high level for 3 or 4 years. Like,
there was a reason Florida State was ranked. If you look at 247s, they were ranked the 20th most talented team. There's a reason why. It wasn't, and there's a reason why they went 13-0. It wasn't because that they were relying on their depth. They had a good top layer. They had very good coaching in there. But once you get into their depth, they're going to struggle a little bit.
Yeah, it's a different team.
Yep. And they haven't been able to recruit in the high school levels as well as anybody in the first years, the last few years.
Much less Georgia. Yeah. So, that one to me is maybe not necessarily the most exciting matchup, and I know that some people will be tuned in because they want to see their point proven one way or the other. You got picks against the spread for bowl season?
Oh, I can make some. You want me to make some?
Okay. Sorry, were we not going to do that? I thought that was. All right. I can go ahead and walk through mine.
How many are we doing?
I did 6 like we.
Okay, I got 6 then.
You have them now?
I'll do it. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I really didn't mean to put you on the spot there. So I will go ahead and walk you through mine and kind of give you my thought process on it. So kind of like I talked about, like the criteria for finding intriguing bowl matchups, like take the opposite, and then that's going to be what I want in terms of like picking versus the number. So like if I can find it where it's mismatched, where I have one team that does very few opt-outs and is motivated to be there, maybe they've overachieved and they want to put the exclamation point on their season, versus a team that maybe didn't quite meet their expectations, like that, those are ones that I'm looking for. Or just like, maybe a team that fell short of expectations, but their talent is just so much greater than a team, that maybe they're paired with a team from like what's viewed as a lesser conference, and maybe there's a bit of a mismatch in terms of the matchup. So first one I've got Northwestern +7 versus Utah. I think they can keep it close. You have to remember that Utah is going to be down to its 4th string QB. Rising's out. Barnes and Johnson, or is it Johnson?
Nate Johnson, yeah.
Nate Johnson, yeah. They're both in the portal. So you're with your 4th string QB. a couple of different pro opt-outs already as well. I think that Northwestern can keep it close. I'd also might look at the under here, but right now I have chosen Northwestern +7, overachieving. They want to win it to have a winning season in Braun's first year as the head coach, and celebrating him get the interim tag removed. Give me Northwestern +7 versus Utah. All right. Another game that's kind of, again, hinges on opt-outs and people being available. Texas State -4.5 versus Rice. JT Daniels has medically retired from football, and he was a good reason that Rice is even in this game. And JG Kinney and the Texas State Bobcats have had a great season, have a great offense. I think they'll cover that 4.5. Cory's already laughing at me at my clown picks over here.
No, I'm looking at you because it makes sense that he is redshirted and medically redshirted. And he's just kind of funny. Like, good luck.
All right, next one. We kind of talked about this game already. I'm taking Georgia -17 versus Florida State. I just think when you get into the depth of these two teams, I expect a lot of opt-outs from FSU.
-17?
-14. Did I say -17?
I heard -17. Maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe there's another one down here, so maybe I read a line down on that. Sorry. -14 is what the line is. I will take the dogs. Like I said, I expect a lot of opt-outs from Florida State. Now that they don't have stakes to play for, I don't think you're going to see most of that starting defense play, and that's going to be a problem. and is knowing how challenged you're going to be offensively already. So give me the dogs -14. The next one, Oregon -17.5 versus Liberty. We kind of talked about this already. Like Liberty, they struggle with some teams that I don't think are particularly good. And, I mean, they ended up winning all their games, which is, that's the name of the game. I do think they're going to be overmatched. Bo Nix saying that he's back for this game is kind of like the cherry on top for me, where it's like, okay, they're going to win this thing by 17. They'll go to the backup QB for a bit, and there are lots of bro hugs on the sideline and lots of sideline FaceTime for Bo Nix and his swan song as a college football player. Give me them to cover the 17.5. My fifth pick, Clemson -5 versus Kentucky. Again, this is one where it's like Kentucky's kind of challenged offensively. Ray Davis has already announced he's going pro. He has not made a determination on the bowl game. I am betting he does not play in that game.
There's also games where Ray Davis does not show up at all.
Yeah, and Clemson's got a pretty good defensive line that will be playing in that game. Barrett Carter is returning to Clemson for another year, which is stunning to me. And they have, I think, the quarterback edge. I mean, it's a razor thin margin here when we're talking Devin Leary, who's kind of had a disappointing season, and Cade Klubnik, but I think that they will be. Give me Clemson. I think they cover that 5. My last pick. I'm already laughing. It's hard to keep a straight face on this one. So Notre Dame plays Oregon State, right? So Notre Dame wide receivers all in the portal. Quarterback opted to just prepare for the NFL draft. Oregon State obviously lose their head coach. QBs 1 and 2 are both in the portal. I think they've got 2 offensive linemen that are NFL picks. I don't anticipate either of them playing.
Steve, just say it straight up.
But from a gambling perspective, I think the under 43 points is definitely the move here. So give me the under in Notre Dame versus Oregon State, because no one's going to be able to move the ball.
Welcome to bowl games where we revert back to playing high school players, essentially.
Yeah, it's kind of like a spin it forward sort of a year where it's like, okay, what do we have in this redshirt freshman? What can he do against better competition?
The coaches that are going to coach those teams aren't even there.
I mean, that's fewer and further between, though. I mean, you have some elements of that, but more of these, like, obviously that one's one where Oregon State doesn't have the same coach, but like they hired from within, so like some of that staff's going to stay on. Others have already moved on to Michigan State and followed.
The staff too, though.
Yeah, that's fair.
Is that your 6?
Those are my 6.
All right, I'm winging this as we go. I'm taking Arizona -3 over Oklahoma.
Ooh, I don't have a good feel on that one at all. Like, I like Arizona, but I just think in the trenches it'll be an interesting battle.
I'm just a defeated believer, and I think Arizona's playing for something. Like what are they at 9 wins right now? I think they're at 9.
They're at 9. Yeah, they're
Yeah,
9-3.
for like to be a 10-win season, they're a team, and they're playing to continue to build on where they want to go, and hopefully they don't get picked by everybody to go UFC. That's not that it's happening yet, but you never know. That's fast.
But it could.
Yeah, I also had Clemson -5 versus Kentucky. I had Oregon -17 versus Liberty, or 17.5 versus Liberty. The SMU Boston College game intrigues me quite a bit because SMU played a backup quarterback, and he looked really, really good in their championship game. And he's going to potentially play in this game. And then Boston College has got redshirt freshman? True. Redshirt sophomore?
I think he's a redshirt freshman, yeah.
Yeah, a quarterback, and there's a reason to play him and continue to move in that direction, and I liked where they were headed. I feel like they started to get competitive towards the middle of the season, and that was exciting. SMU is favored by 11 points. And I could see it happening, but I'm going to go with Boston College on this one to cover the 11.
They can play ball control, shorten the game.
Exactly.
Don't let SMU run away from you.
All right, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to pick a random game. Tulane versus Vautech. Tulane's coach is gone. I like Vautech's scrambling quarterback. I'm going Vautech to cover the 7.5.
That to me is like, I saw that and I was like, oh, that's surprising. And then I thought more about, I was like, okay, is Michael Pratt playing in that game? Probably not. Obviously, Willie Fritz is gone. I don't know. That one's like, it'll be interesting. And how about that for a bounce back year for Virginia Tech? If they win that game, what is that? 8-5?
Oh, I don't know off the top of my head. Let's see.
I can't remember. Sorry, you don't have to look it up. But Brent Pry looked much improved, and the team looked much improved back half of the season here for Virginia Tech.
6-6.
Okay, so not even close. So they could potentially go 7-6. Good for them.
I mean, you got. You look at your season. You lost to Florida State, then you beat Wake Forest, you beat Virginia, or you beat Syracuse. You lose pretty handily to Louisville, and you beat Boston College. You hang in there with NC State, and you get beat by 7 points in that game, and then you blow the crap out of Virginia. I mean, that's 1, 2, 3, 4 wins on the back end of your schedule when you had
6. Yeah.
They turned around by moving that running quarterback. I think they picked him up against Pittsburgh too. So that's 5 wins underneath that new quarterback that they had.
Kyron Drones.
Yeah. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Last but not least, we're gonna go with the I think LSU. I'm gonna pick the LSU game. Jaden Daniels has not decided whether he's gonna go or not. He said whether he'll play the bowl game or not. He said we'll see. Either way, I still think Wisconsin gets beat by more than 10.5.
So I clipped that one from mine. I realized I had 7. That was my other one, and I was like, all right, I think I like the Notre Dame, Oregon State under more. But yeah, right there with you. LSU, if you'll recall, last year played Purdue in their bowl game, and it was just an absolute laugher. And I don't know if it matters if Jaden Daniels is playing or not. They have good enough receivers and enough of them that are, I think, that won't be opting out. Like, obviously, if you're Malik Neighbors, you're probably not playing in that game, I don't think.
Yeah, but
Brian Thomas, I think, would play. I mean, he's a senior, but I mean, I think he could use more tape. Kyron Lacey definitely needs to play. And Nussmeier's a decent quarterback. Like, they have a good backup QB, so I like that pick a lot.
Yeah, it doesn't look like anybody. I'm looking, trying to see if anybody announced that they're out. So LSU has guys that are hitting the transfer portal, but nobody that's opted out. So.
Yeah, and even the transfer portal guys, I don't think any of them are real contributors. Maybe one of the running backs, but I think that's it.
Trey Bradford, maybe. No, I'm trying to think who's it. They got 3 running backs in the portal.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, those are my picks.
Right.
Bowl season's gonna suck. It's gonna be all crazy and all over the place. So,
building
up.
Some of us are here for it. Some of us may not be. That's okay. Any like final thoughts or parting shots? Anything you got to add?
My thought process is if the bowl games don't, or if the regular season doesn't matter, the bowl games sure as hell don't matter. And so it's like, go watch who wins the ESPN Invitational.
Yeah, hard to argue with that. Hard to argue with that one. It's like when we're gonna ignore the regular season, why would we care about the bowls? For me, it's more learning about players and stuff for next season. Who's got the juice? Who should I be paying attention to? Who's in a game now that will be in the portal later that I can focus on for other
The
teams.
interesting thing is like the players that are in the playoffs, right? They get to an extra few days to go into the portal over everybody else.
Yeah, after the season concludes.
Yeah.
So there'll be kind of another little mini round of
I mean, you do have
portal additions.
You do have A.D. Mitchell out of Texas, who's playing for now his potentially third national championship since Georgia didn't make it. He's the only player that
Crazy. Yeah.
Fun.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap here. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We will give you kind of the details on our bowl pick'em via our social media accounts. So pay attention to us there. We'll announce it in the coming days, especially as bowl season starts. I believe this Saturday, so we got to get rolling on that. Thanks for your support. We'll be back again. We'll start probably spacing these out a little bit now that it's the off season. So more details to come on that, but just keep it locked in your feed. We appreciate it, and we will see you next time.